You're thinking about someone you haven't spoken to in years. Not just a passing thought, a vivid, almost physical pull toward them. You can almost hear their voice, you can almost feel their presence. And then your phone rings. It's them. Or maybe it happened differently for you. Maybe you dreamed about a place you'd never been, and 3 weeks later you're standing in that exact spot. Maybe a book fell off a shelf at the precise moment you needed its message. Maybe you kept seeing the same number, the same symbol, the same word over and over until you couldn't ignore it anymore. And in that moment, something shifted inside you. A door cracked open. A whisper emerged from the silence, and for just a second, maybe less, you felt it, the unmistakable sense that reality is not what you've been told. That there's something deeper, something intelligent, something watching. But here's what nobody talks about. You probably never told anyone. Because how do you explain something like that without sounding crazy? How do you describe a coincidence so perfect, so precise, so impossibly timed, that calling it random feels like a lie? So you kept it to yourself, filed it away, moved on, but it never really left you, did it? That question, that whisper, has been there ever since, waiting. Let me tell you something important. You're not crazy, you're not making things up, and you're definitely not alone. What you experienced has a name. It's called synchronicity, and it's been documented, studied, and analyzed by some of the greatest minds in psychology and physics for over a century. Carl Jung, the legendary psychiatrist who gave us the concepts of the collective unconscious, archetypes, and introversion, spent decades investigating these impossible coincidences. He didn't dismiss them. He didn't explain them away. He took them seriously because he experienced them himself. And here's what he discovered. Synchronicity isn't random. It's not a glitch in probability. It's a message, a signal, a crack in the fabric of what we call reality, revealing something vast and unified beneath the surface. But here's the paradox, and this is where it gets interesting. Most people rarely experience synchronicity. Or when they do, they brush it off, they rationalize it, they forget it. Why? Because they've unknowingly built walls between themselves and this deeper reality, walls made of rigid beliefs, repetitive thoughts, and an identity so fixed that nothing new can penetrate it. And that, right there, is what we're going to explore today. In this episode, I'm going to show you what synchronicity really is. Not the watered-down, wishful thinking version, but the deep, scientific, almost terrifying truth that Jung and modern physicists have uncovered. I'll explain why these meaningful coincidences are actually cracks in the illusion. Moments when the veil lifts and you glimpse the true nature of existence. And most importantly, I'll reveal why you've been cut off from this experience and what's been blocking you from living in alignment with this deeper reality. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. Synchronicity isn't something that happens to you. It's something you've always been part of. You just forgot how to see it. Ready to remember? Let's go deeper. Let me tell you a story that changed everything. It was 1909. Carl Jung was sitting with a patient, a woman trapped in her own rationality. Brilliant, educated, and completely closed off to anything beyond cold logic. Her healing had stalled. Nothing was getting through. That day, she was describing a dream. In the dream, someone had given her a golden scarab, an ancient Egyptian symbol of rebirth and transformation. As she spoke those words, Jung heard a tapping at the window. He turned. There, beating against the glass, was a scarab beetle, the only time in his entire career that such a thing had happened. He caught the beetle, handed it to her, and said, "Here is your scarab." In that moment, her armor cracked. Something broke through and her transformation began. Now here's the question that haunted Jung for the rest of his life. What was that? Not coincidence. The probability was too astronomical. Not causation. Her dream didn't summon the beetle. Something else was at work. Something that connected inner experience with outer reality in a way that defied every law of physics. Jung called it synchronicity, meaningful coincidence without causal connection. But here's what most people miss. Jung wasn't describing random luck. He was describing a principle of reality itself. A pattern that suggests mind and matter aren't separate. They're woven from the same fabric. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That's a nice story, but how do we know it's real? How do we know synchronicity isn't just selective attention, noticing patterns because we're looking for them? Fair question, and it's exactly what separates genuine seekers from those who stop at the surface. So let me take you deeper, into the work of someone who took Jung's ideas and pushed them into territory that will challenge everything you think you know. F. David Pete was a physicist, not a mystic, not a self-help guru. A scientist trained in the hard logic of quantum mechanics and mathematics. And yet, after decades of research, he came to a stunning conclusion. Synchronicity, he said, isn't a glitch. It's a feature. It's a crack in the fabric of reality, a momentary opening that allows us to glimpse what lies beneath. Let me explain what that means. Imagine you're looking at a frozen lake. The surface is solid, opaque, separate from what's below. That surface is ordinary reality, the world of distinct objects, linear time, cause and effect. But occasionally a crack appears in the ice, and through that crack you see the water underneath. Vast, fluid, interconnected. Everything flowing into everything else. Synchronicity is that crack. It's a moment when the boundary between your inner world and outer reality becomes transparent. When you realize, not intellectually but experientially, that there is no separation. That mind and matter arise from the same unified field. Pete called this the implicate order, a term borrowed from physicist David Bohm. It's the hidden wholeness beneath the fragmented surface of existence, and synchronicity is our invitation to remember it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The rarity of synchronicity in most people's lives isn't because reality is stingy. It's not because the universe is holding out on you. It's because you've built a wall. Pete observed something crucial. The less we experience synchronicity, the more fragmented we've become from the unified field. It's like a signal, or rather the absence of signal, telling us how far we've drifted from our true nature. Most people live in a kind of psychic isolation, trapped in loops of repetitive thinking, identified with a fixed sense of self, cut off from the living intelligence that surrounds them. And here's the kicker. They don't even know it. They've mistaken the prison for freedom, the wall for protection. So what builds this wall? What keeps us locked out of the deeper reality that synchronicity reveals? That's exactly what we need to explore next. David Schoenberg was a psychiatrist who saw something that most of his colleagues missed. He noticed that human thought doesn't flow freely. It gets trapped. It circles back on itself. It forms patterns that repeat endlessly, like water caught in a whirlpool. He called these patterns vortices of thought. And here's where it gets fascinating. In fluid dynamics, vortices are remarkably stable. Think of Jupiter's great red spot, a storm that has been raging for over 300 years. Once a vortex forms, it resists dissolution. It maintains itself. It fights to survive. Your beliefs work exactly the same way. When an idea takes hold in your mind, especially during childhood, especially during emotional intensity, it doesn't just sit there passively. It creates a vortex, a self-reinforcing loop that pulls in confirming evidence and deflects anything that threatens it. I'm not good enough. The world is dangerous. I can't trust anyone. I'll never succeed. These aren't just thoughts. They're vortices. And they've been spinning in your psyche for years, maybe decades, growing stronger with every repetition. But here's the part no one talks about. These vortices don't just trap your thinking. They trap your perception. They filter what you can see, what you can feel, what you can receive from reality. Synchronicity requires openness. It requires fluidity. It requires a mind that can receive signals from beyond its own patterns. But when you're caught in a vortex, you're not open, you're not fluid, you're spinning in place, going nowhere, seeing nothing new, completely cut off from the deeper field. Let me give you an example. Watch two people having a conversation. Really watch them. Pay attention to whether they're actually listening or just waiting for their turn to speak. You'll notice something disturbing. Most people don't converse. They defend. They're not taking in new information. They're protecting existing beliefs. Every response is a fortification of what they already think. That's a vortex in action, self-reinforcing, self-protecting, closed to anything that might disturb its spin. And here's the tragedy. The person inside the vortex usually doesn't know they're trapped. They think they're thinking. They think they're open, but they're just repeating, cycling, spinning. Is that you? Have you been spinning without knowing it? Pause with that for a moment, and now let me show you something even deeper. Edgar Levinson was a psychotherapist who asked a radical question. Why does therapy work at all? Think about it. There are hundreds of different therapeutic approaches: Freudian, Jungian, cognitive, behavioral, humanistic. They have different theories, different techniques, different explanations for why people suffer. And yet, they all work, more or less equally. The technique doesn't seem to matter nearly as much as something else. Levinson's answer? Resonance. He proposed that healing doesn't happen because the therapist tells you something new. It happens because the therapist resonates with something you already know, but have buried, forgotten, or fragmented away from consciousness. And here's the stunning part. Levinson described every person's experience as a kind of three-dimensional hologram, a vast, complex representation of everything they've ever felt, known, and lived. Most of it hidden, most of it unconscious, but all of it present. When the right resonance occurs, when the therapist speaks the right words, asks the right question, or simply holds the right presence, something clicks. The hologram becomes visible. All the pieces suddenly fall into place. Levinson called this the moment of overload, when accumulated insight reaches a critical mass and everything shifts at once. Have you ever experienced that? A moment when suddenly, without warning, everything made sense? When years of confusion collapsed into clarity in a single instant? That's not magic, that's resonance. That's your hidden hologram revealing itself. And here's the connection to synchronicity. What if synchronicity works the same way? What if those meaningful coincidences are moments of resonance, not between you and a therapist, but between you and reality itself? Think about when synchronicities tend to happen. Jung noticed they cluster around periods of intense emotional transition, when you're on the edge of transformation, when something new is trying to emerge into consciousness. It's as if reality responds to your inner state, as if the outer world mirrors the inner process, as if, at the deepest level, there is no outer and inner at all. The vortices block this resonance. They create noise instead of signal. They keep you spinning in old patterns instead of being available to the new. But when a vortex dissolves, even temporarily, something opens. The noise quiets, and suddenly you can hear what reality has been trying to tell you all along. So here's the question that matters. If synchronicity reveals the true nature of reality, a unified field where mind and matter are one, and if vortices of thought block us from experiencing this, then what happens when we see through the illusion completely? What happens when the wall comes down? What happens when you realize, truly realize, that the separation you've been living has never been real? That's what we need to explore now. Are you ready to go deeper? Let me offer you a metaphor that might change everything. Think about a dream. In a dream, you walk through a world that seems completely real. There are tables and chairs, there are other people. There's a sky above and ground below. Everything appears separate, distinct, independent. But it's not. Everything in the dream, every object, every person, every landscape, arises from a single source, your unconscious mind. The apparent separation is an illusion. The table and the chair and the stranger on the street are all expressions of one underlying reality, you. Now here's the question that Pete, Jung, Bohm, and dozens of physicists have been asking. What if waking life works the same way? What if the separation we see between self and other, between mind and matter, between inner experience and outer reality, is just as illusory as the separation in a dream? What if everything arises from a single unified field of consciousness, and we've simply forgotten that we're part of it? This is what synchronicity reveals. In that moment when the impossible coincidence occurs, when your thought manifests as an external event, you're not witnessing a glitch. You're witnessing the truth. You're seeing through the illusion of separation. You're experiencing directly that your mind and the world are not two things. They never were. Pete put it beautifully. Synchronicity shows us that there is no division between the physical world and our inner psychological reality. They're expressions of the same underlying order. When Jung's patient dreamed of a scarab and a scarab appeared at the window, that wasn't coincidence. That was reality revealing its true nature. The inner and outer were never separate. The dream and the beetle arose from the same source. And here's what this means for you. You are not a separate self living in an indifferent universe. You are a unique expression of a unified field, like a whirlpool in a river. You have your own form, your own pattern, your own experience, but you are not separate from the flow. You never were. So here's the radical shift. Most people try to manifest synchronicity. They try to force meaningful coincidences through visualization, affirmation, desperate wanting. But that's exactly backward. You don't create synchronicity. You remove the barriers to experiencing it. The unified field is always there. The deeper reality never went anywhere. Synchronicity is happening all the time. You're just not tuned in. The vortices of thought create static. The rigid beliefs create walls. The fixed identity creates blindness. When you dissolve these, not through force, but through awareness, something opens. The signal becomes clear. The cracks appear more frequently. Reality starts speaking to you in ways you couldn't hear before. And here's the profound part. When synchronicity increases in your life, it's not because you've learned a trick. It's because you've come home. You've returned to alignment with what you always were. A conscious expression of the unified field dancing with itself. So let me ask you this, what would it mean to live from this understanding? Not as a belief, not as a philosophy, but as a lived experience, moment by moment, breath by breath. What would change if you truly knew, in your bones, in your cells, in the depths of your being, that you are not separate, that your thoughts ripple through the same field that forms stars and moves oceans? That reality is not happening to you, but through you as you. This is what synchronicity invites. Not a new belief system, not another self-help technique, but a remembering, a return, a waking up inside the dream, and realizing you are both the dreamer and the dreamed. That's when reality reveals its true nature, not as something out there to be conquered or manipulated, but as what you are, what you've always been. What you're finally ready to remember. So here's my question for you. When was the last time you experienced a synchronicity that stopped you in your tracks? A coincidence so perfect, so precisely timed, so meaningful, that for just a moment the veil lifted? I want you to drop one word in the comments, just one word that captures the essence of that experience, the feeling, the recognition, the glimpse, because when we share these experiences, something multiplies. The signal amplifies. We remind each other that we're not crazy, we're waking up. Now, before we wrap up, let me tell you something. This is episode 8 of the Beyond Reality series, and if synchronicity reveals that mind and matter aren't separate, then what we're exploring next will take that understanding somewhere. Most people aren't ready to go, because here's the thing. If your thoughts can resonate with reality itself, if the boundary between inner and outer is an illusion, then what happens when that same power turns inward? What happens when consciousness focuses not on synchronizing with the world, but on rewriting the body itself? Episode 9 explores something that should be impossible according to everything you've been taught. We're talking about documented cases where belief alone dissolved tumors overnight, where imagination changed blood chemistry in ways that baffled doctors, where the mind demonstrated control over biology so specific, so precise, that calling it placebo misses the entire point. I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say this. If you thought synchronicity was radical, wait until you see what your consciousness can do when it stops asking reality for permission and starts creating it from within. If this episode resonated with something deep inside you, if you felt that spark of recognition, I invite you to subscribe and join this space. This isn't just a channel, it's a conversation, a gathering of people who sense that reality is far stranger, far more beautiful, and far more interconnected than we've been told. Episode 9 and the full Beyond Reality playlist are linked in the description below. Trust me on this, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Synchronicity isn't just something that happens sometimes, it's reality trying to tell you what you are. The question is, are you listening? I'll see you in episode 9. Until then, pay attention. The cracks are everywhere.